Katt Williams finds young man crying over broken dreams. What he does next will restore your faith. The young man on the park bench was crying like his world had ended. His acceptance letter to law school lay crumpled beside him. Not from joy, but from defeat. He'd worked 3 jobs to save for tuition, but it wasn't enough. His dreams were dying right there on that Chicago park bench, until Katt Williams sat down next to him and asked one simple question that would change everything. Welcome to Visionary Story. Before we begin this story of shattered dreams, unexpected kindness, and the power of believing in someone's potential, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Grant Park in downtown Chicago as Katt Williams decided to take a walk instead of heading straight back to his hotel. He'd just finished a lunch meeting with his management team about upcoming tour dates, and his mind was buzzing with schedules and logistics. Sometimes the best way to clear his head was to walk among regular people living their regular lives. The park was busy with the usual mix of tourists taking photos, office workers grabbing fresh air during their breaks, and joggers weaving through the crowds. Katt pulled his baseball cap low and walked slowly, enjoying the anonymity of being just another person in the crowd. That's when he heard the crying. At first he thought it might be a child who'd lost their parents or scraped a knee, but as he got closer to the sound, he realized it was coming from a young man sitting alone on a bench near the lakefront. The guy looked to be in his early 20s, tall and lanky, wearing clothes that had seen better days but were clean and carefully maintained. What struck Katt wasn't just that the young man was crying, it was how he was crying. These weren't tears of momentary frustration or passing sadness. This was the kind of deep, soul-crushing sobbing that came when someone's entire world was falling apart. The young man held a letter in his hands, and even from a distance, Katt could see it was some kind of official document, an acceptance letter by the look of it, though that didn't explain why someone would be devastated by good news. Most people walking by gave the crying young man a wide berth, the way city dwellers do when confronted with someone else's pain. They'd glance over, feel a moment of sympathy, then quicken their pace to avoid getting involved. But something about the scene stopped Katt in his tracks. Maybe it was the careful way the young man had folded and unfolded the letter, like it contained the most important words he'd ever read. Maybe it was the backpack beside him that looked stuffed with textbooks. Or maybe it was just the recognition of someone whose dreams were being crushed by circumstances beyond their control. Whatever it was, Katt found himself changing direction and walking toward the bench. Mind if I sit down? Katt asked gently, gesturing to the empty space beside the young man. The guy looked up, startled. His eyes were red and swollen from crying, and he quickly tried to wipe his face with his sleeve. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. He gestured helplessly at himself, clearly embarrassed to be found in such a vulnerable state. You don't have to apologize for feeling things, Katt said, settling onto the bench. I'm Katt, by the way. Marcus, the young man replied, his voice still thick with emotion. Marcus Johnson. Nice to meet you, Marcus. Looks like you got some heavy news there. Katt nodded toward the letter in Marcus's hands. Marcus looked down at the paper like he'd forgotten he was holding it. Yeah, you could say that. He let out a bitter laugh. This is supposed to be the best day of my life. I got accepted to Northwestern Law School. Katt raised his eyebrows. That sounds like something to celebrate, not cry about. That's what I thought too, Marcus said, his voice cracking again. I've been working toward this for 3 years. Worked 3 jobs to pay for undergrad. Studied every spare minute I had. Took the LSAT twice to get a score good enough for a school like this. So what's the problem? Marcus held up the letter with shaking hands. The problem is right here in the financial aid section. Even with the partial scholarship they offered, I'd need $40,000 a year for tuition and living expenses. I've got maybe $3,000 saved up. He crumpled the letter again, then immediately smoothed it out. 3 years of killing myself, and so I could get accepted to a school I can't afford to attend. Katt studied Marcus's face, seeing the exhaustion and disappointment etched in every line. This wasn't just about money. It was about the collapse of carefully constructed hope. Tell me about those 3 jobs you worked, Katt said. Marcus seemed surprised by the question, but he answered anyway. Nights at a 24-hour diner, weekends at a retail store, and I tutored other students whenever I could pick up sessions. Sometimes I'd go 2 days on 3 hours of sleep, but I had to do it. My mom raised me alone, works as a nursing assistant. She couldn't help pay for college, so it was all on me. What kind of law do you want to practice? For the first time since Katt had sat down, Marcus's expression brightened slightly. Civil rights. I want to help people who can't afford good legal representation. Growing up where I did, I saw how the system works differently depending on how much money you have. I wanted to level that playing field a little bit. Katt felt something stir in his chest. Here was a young man who'd worked himself to exhaustion, not for personal wealth or status, but because he wanted to help others. And the system was about to crush those dreams, simply because he didn't have enough money. Marcus, can I ask you something? Katt said. What would you do if money wasn't an issue? If you could go to law school without worrying about the cost? Marcus's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they seemed to be tears of longing rather than despair. I'd work harder than anyone else in my class. I'd graduate at the top, pass the bar exam on the first try, and spend my career making sure other people like me don't get shut out of opportunities because of where they come from. You sound pretty sure about that. I am sure. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do, but wanting something doesn't pay tuition bills. Katt was quiet for a moment, watching a group of children play on the nearby playground while their parents watched from nearby bench. He thought about his own journey, the times when his dreams had seemed impossible, the people who had helped him when he needed it most. Marcus, he said finally, what if I told you that money doesn't have to be the thing that stops you? Marcus looked at him with confusion. What do you mean? What if someone was willing to invest in your future? What if someone believed in you enough to bet on your success? I don't understand, Marcus said, though there was a flicker of hope in his eye. Katt pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. I'm going to make a call, but first I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me that if someone gives you this opportunity, you'll use it the way you just described, that you'll work harder than everyone else, graduate at the top of your class, and spend your career helping people. Marcus stared at Katt like he was speaking a foreign language. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. Do you promise? Yes, I promise, but I still don't understand what's happening. Katt dialed the number and put the phone to his ear. After a few rings, someone answered. Sarah, it's Katt Williams. I need you to set up a scholarship fund. Yes, immediately. Northwestern Law School, full tuition plus living expenses for 3 years. The recipient's name is Marcus Johnson. Marcus's mouth fell open as he listened to one side of the conversation. Just put it under the Williams Foundation Scholarship Program. Anonymous donor. And Sarah, make sure the paperwork is ready by tomorrow morning. Yes, I know it's fast, but this is important. When Katt hung up, Marcus was staring at him in complete shock. I don't understand, Marcus whispered. Who are you? Why would you do this for a stranger? I'm someone who believes that talent and determination matter more than bank account balances. Katt replied, and you're not really a stranger, you're someone who reminds me that the world needs people who care more about justice than profit. Marcus began crying again, but these were entirely different tears. I can't accept this. It's too much. I don't even know how to. You can accept it, and you will, Katt said firmly, but not as charity. As an investment. Someday when you're a successful lawyer helping people who need it, you'll remember this moment, and when you have the chance to help someone else achieve their dreams, you'll do it. That's how this works. But what if I fail? What if I take your money and don't live up to your expectation? Katt smiled. Marcus, I've been watching people for a living for 20 years. I know determination when I see it. You won't fail because failure isn't in you. You've already proven that by getting this far. They sat in silence for a few minutes, both looking out at the lake as the sun began to set over Chicago's skyline. Can I ask you something? Marcus said eventually. Anything. How did you know? How did you know I was worth this kind of investment? Katt thought about the question seriously. Because you weren't crying about not getting accepted. You were crying because you got accepted, but couldn't afford to go. That tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. Over the next 3 years, Marcus Johnson kept his promise. He graduated from Northwestern Law School at the top of his class, passed the Illinois bar exam on his first attempt, and immediately took a position with a legal aid organization, serving low-income communities in Chicago. Katt received updates periodically, photos of Marcus at graduation, news articles about cases he'd won for clients who couldn't have afforded representation otherwise. Each update reminded him why that afternoon in Grant Park had been so important. But the moment that meant the most came 5 years later, when Katt received a letter from Marcus. Inside was a photo of a young woman in a graduation cap and gown, along with a note, "Dear Katt, I wanted you to know that I've started my own scholarship fund to help kids from my old neighborhood attend college. The first recipient is Maria Gonzalez, whose story reminds me a lot of my own. I told her what you told me, that this isn't charity, it's an investment in her future. She promised to pay it forward someday, just like I'm doing now. Thank you for teaching me that dreams don't have to die just because they seem impossible. Your friend, Marcus Johnson." Katt framed that letter and hung it in his dressing room, where it serves as a daily reminder that sometimes the most important performances happen not on stage, but on park benches, where broken dreams can be rebuilt with a little faith and a lot of heart. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Marcus, someone whose dreams were bigger than their bank account, who worked harder than anyone deserved to work but still couldn't quite reach their goal? Have you been that person yourself, sitting on your own park bench wondering if your dreams were worth the struggle? Say their name in the comments. Share their story. Let others know about the moment when hope seemed lost but was. Because at Visionary Story, we believe that the most powerful dreams are the ones that refuse to die, even when everything seems impossible. Sometimes all it takes is one person who sees the potential that others miss, who's willing to bet on talent over circumstance. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, subscribe, share, and help us keep these voices alive. We'll see you in the next one. And until then, remember, if you ever see someone crying on a park bench holding an acceptance letter, maybe you're looking at someone whose dreams just need a little help becoming reality.